Let's bring in host of the Ben Ferguson Show and co-host of Verdict with Ted Cruz, Ben Ferguson, along with Green Beret and co-founder of Save Our Allies, Tim Kennedy, also Master Sergeant. Tim, I'm going to start with you on this. What could the enemy do, these Iran proxies, given so much time between these three soldiers being killed and how this was so publicly telegraphed by the Biden administration?
Yeah, speed, surprise, and violence of action. These are the things that you want to wield when you're at war. And when you lose the entire element of surprise by broadcasting and projecting what you're going to be doing, effectively, these guerrilla warfare, unconventional war-style militias are able to disperse their units. They're able to strategically relocate all of their personnel, which makes any form of an attack, no matter if you hit 85 targets or 850 targets, almost useless and pointless.
Yeah, so Ben, to Tim's point, this is confusing because to give your enemy a warning that you're going to come and attack, giving Iran a warning to move their assets, it seems like this was not meant to be a deterrent to Iran to stop attacking U.S. ships. It seems like it was actually for the American people, so Joe Biden could pretend like he was doing something in response to the three service members who lost their lives.
Yeah, it was a PR stunt. It was a PR, okay, we're taking a lot of hit because we've had more than 150 attacks on American targets since the attack on Israel, and we've done nothing in response. If you really get down to it, we barely responded 10% of the time. So what that says to Iran is, you and your proxies can hit us 10 times, and we will respond to 1 out of every 10. I had the honor yesterday of spending time with a man that served this country and actually went after and helped find Saddam Hussein in Iraq. And I asked him his opinion about this, and he said it's embarrassing that the U.S. military has now gotten to a point where we are telling the enemy what we're going to do days in advance just so we can cover our own rear end politically at home. I also talked to someone else today at Fort Bragg, or now Fort Freedom, who said to me, and this is someone that has been doing this for almost 2 decades, he said, we are at a point now of disbelief because we have a commander-in-chief that is clearly not willing to protect the men and women who are serving this country overseas. And he's not willing to do what it takes to fight these small terrorist groups and terrorist cells that we clearly can overpower and we can take them out. We've done it thousands and thousands of times, but there seems to be no willpower from this president. And also they said the Secretary of Defense, a guy that, by the way, doesn't even communicate with the president when he gets cancer and goes MIA for 3 days, that anyone else in the military would be fired for.
Well, speaking of the Secretary of Defense, Tim, there are a couple of statements that have come out. Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of Defense, in a statement, part of what he said was, we do not seek conflict in the Middle East or anywhere else. And then John Kirby, in some statements that have crossed, did say, we believe that the strikes were successful, but then he goes on to add, the signal is the attacks have to stop, but we're not looking for a war with Iran. Why the language of softness? What does that do?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely projects that we're the victims and prey in this instance, instead projecting strength. There's no doubt. We keep saying these Iranian proxies. We do need to fix that statement because they're not Iranian proxies. These are wings of the Iranian state. They're being funded by them. They're being equipped by them, but they're being trained by them. So proxy or not, militias or not, terrorist organizations or not, this is Iran waging war against us and our allies. If you look around the whole entire region, whether it's in Yemen or if it's northern Lebanon, whether it's the Hezbollah or it's Hamas, it's Al-Qaeda, it's the Taliban, all of them are being funded by Iran, and we need to start treating them accordingly. So a sign of strength is not proportionate. Us saying, hey, you attacked us. Fortunately, we were able to stop this many number of drones. You got a couple of through. You killed a few of our people. A couple of dozen people got hurt. So this is, in comparison, a fair response. Now, that moral equivalence has to be erased. The American strength and people recognizing that we are the strongest country on the planet, where if you come and hurt one of our service members while they're overseas doing their job, protecting our interests, there are going to be consequences, and those consequences are severe and dire. That has to be clear across every single line, and everybody understands that when you mess with Americans, Dig and Sean, that there is a consequence that you do not want to imagine. You cannot imagine.
So if you're not going to hit,
Sean, let me say this too.
Sure.
You remember President Bush when he said we will not distinguish any difference between those that harbor terrorists after 9/11 and those who are the terrorists. They're one and the same. That is what this president should be saying, especially after 150 plus attacks. He should say there is no distinction between those that are carrying out the attacks and those that are helping train, aid, and abet and giving shelter, food, ammunition, and money and celebration after they're successful. And yet we have a president that tells the enemy, which makes no sense in any real world, that we are coming in a few days, and so they can hide their assets and hide their people.
You know, Joe Biden's afraid to strike Iran directly. Miraculously, if their oil infrastructure somehow blew up and they lost their ability to sell oil, that might send a pretty strong message as well. But he refuses to do any of those things. But I want to move to this.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
The United States under Joe Biden is bankrolling, funding, and subsidizing these attacks because they refuse to do anything to stop the production and sale of Iranian oil.
No doubt.
The United States is paying for both sides of this conflict. And to think that we have aided and abetted the death of those 3 service members is vile to any American with a heart or a soul. Go.
Gentlemen, I want to get your take on this before I let you go, because it's no secret Joe Biden's foreign policy, specifically his support for Israel, is costing him with liberal voters across the country. And as election day, as it inches closer, they've come up with an ultimatum. He can either call for a ceasefire and he can get their votes, or he can keep back in Israel, lose their votes, and watch democracy go up in flames. Listen to this.
I think Trump is a threat to American democracy. So the question should stand. What will President Biden do to prevent the unraveling of our American democracy? Why is being aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu and the most right-wing government in Israel's history worth potentially sacrificing our American democracy?
This is unbelievable. Tim, your response.
Yeah, it's difficult for people to understand when we're talking about the strategic implications in the region. You know, we're not just protecting Israel. That is our only hook in the entire region, both for commerce, capitalism, security, and stability for all of the Middle East. I mean, you have to go to the UAE and Saudi Arabia to find any semblance of democracy. That was the worst terrorist attack and the worst cost and most horrific loss of life since the Holocaust. Rape, torture, murder, all funded by Iran, all executed by Hamas, a proxy to Iran. And I said we're going to remove that. These are people that were being aided and trained by Iran. So for us to, in any way, shape, or form, remove our support like we did in Afghanistan, like we have been doing with all of our allies throughout the whole entire world for the past 3 years, it's going to send a message to all of our allies that you don't know if we're going to support you. You don't know if we're actually the ally that's going to stand side by side, shoulder by shoulder, to protect our interests and your country, because we're going to live by, we're going to keep true to our word and defend you like we said that we would. There's so much more at stake here than with a little micro percentage of votes that you're going to be losing. This is an American interest and an American ally, and we're supposed to be standing beside them.
Ben, on that note, so that sound was from the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan. Dearborn, Michigan, there's a piece in the Wall Street Journal refers to Dearborn as America's Jihad capital. Imams and politicians in that Michigan city side with Hamas against Israel. Sure. On October 10th at the Ford Performing Arts Center, they had a rally that was Michigan Rally Cheers Hamas Attack. On January 5th, there was an event held by the Hadi Institute that was a commemoration of the martyrs that included honoring Qasem Soleimani.
Yeah.
That's in the middle of Michigan.
Well, yeah, and look, this is the reality that I think Americans need to get their head around. The Democratic Party is dead. The Democratic Party is now being run by socialists, communists, Marxists, and those that hate Jewish people. They're anti-Semites. Let's be clear about that. and back and support terrorists that kill innocent men, women, and children, behead them, and bake and cook babies in ovens alive. That is who they're supporting. They're supporting the acts of terrorism. The flags that they're flying on TV that everyone got to watch, they're flying those flags in celebration of the butchering of Jewish people. The Democratic Party is no longer dead. They're masquerading as Democrats. The Democratic Party has been taken over by radical Marxists and socialists and people that actively support, aid, and abet terrorist organizations around the world. And I will say this, Joe Biden is an old school Democrat, but the people under him, they hate him just as much because he won't get in line with them. And I don't know how much longer Joe Biden's willing to stand up to them. I bet you at some point he calls for a ceasefire and gives in to the radical left of his party.
No doubt. Ben Ferguson, Tim Kennedy, both of you, thank you for joining us on this Heavy News Day on Friday. We appreciate it.